Hi everybody, welcome to BITOSA Global Webinar. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is a special webinar. We are celebrating and honoring Mother's Day. The webinar is called Motherhood in the New World. My name is Chandrasekhar. I am from 2K7 batch. I work for Yahoo in California. So before we start, I will take you through some logistics. So the first one on my list is that we are recording this webinar and it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and shared through our Facebook page. If you don't know the Facebook page, it's called facebook.com/BITOSA. Please like it and you can share it from there. The YouTube channel is BITOSA Global. You can subscribe there and you can see all our past and future recordings. The second thing on my list is that you can capture all the screenshots and part of the video you want, and you can share with your friends and family. Please tag us when you share with your social networks. The third thing is you can ask the questions through the chat box here, and we'll be with your name and batch and who is which panelist you are asking the questions to. So we'll ask the questions to the panelist. The last thing is about the feedback of this webinar. So after the webinar is completed, you will receive an email with some form where you can submit your feedback about the webinar. With that, I want to introduce my senior, Vivek Jaiswal. He's from 2K1 batch and he's currently founder and CEO at Omoto. Off to you, Vivek sir.
Thank you, CS. Thanks for the warm welcome. And it may have been over a decade since I graduated from BIT, but I am a fairly new member of the BITOSA global community. I have been embraced by the community with open arms. I've experienced warmth, connectedness, and a certain kind of apnapan at the BITOSA global community. It's like being at BIT again. And we, the volunteers at BITOSA Global, are driven by a singular mission: to build an alumni platform which is for the alumni and by the alumni. Our relentless endeavor is to stay relevant and to keep our alumni closely connected. Furthering this effort, BITOSA Global brings to the alumni experts who are also from amongst us. It is in this spirit that we bring today's webinar to celebrate and honor Mother's Day. The world needs our mothers, so rightly said Leah Kebede. But the world has changed since the time we were growing up. Today, technology and information is omnipresent. Is that good or bad for motherhood and parenting? How are mothers of today supposed to balance their family and professional aspirations? How must the fathers support them in this battle? And what kind of world are we building for our next generation as parents? And you know what? Mothers are entrepreneurs at home, managing multiple stakeholders, fending for the growth of the family, deliberating strategic capital allocation, hiring and firing resources that keep the household running. But what if they want to pursue entrepreneurship in the business world? How do they go about that? And what about parenting? Is there like a ready reference or a playbook to help you along the way? To answer these questions and more, please join me in welcoming our August panel members, BITians from amongst us. I'd request our panel members to introduce themselves, sharing their name, batch and branch at BIT, and where they live and work currently. Shall we start with Sandy?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Vivek. Very nice introduction to the topic. So I'm Sandeep Bhattarai, and I'm from the 2001 batch, and I graduated in 2005 in civil engineering, and I started my career in Wipro. I've been living in the UK for the last 8 years, Birmingham to be precise, in UK, and currently I work as an associate director in PwC.
Great, thanks. Can we go next with Ranjeeta, ma'am?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ranjeeta Singh. I'm from 1993 BITian Computer Science branch. And I live in Fremont, California, USA, and I work at Teradata as a Vice President of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks. Lovely to have you. Ayush, sir.
A very nice good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everybody. Ayush Agarwal. I joined in '86, and by God's grace, I passed out in 1990 in 4 years. We always say the joining batch because we know that is where when we joined. I did it in electrical engineering, and currently I work for a company that I co-founded. We are into ERP space for medium and small enterprises.
Thanks for joining us, Ayush, sir. Olyvia, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, BITOSA. Wonderful topic. My name is Olyvia Rakshit, CP 92, graduated in 96, computer science. And by way of introduction, I run a company called ComicFlix. We help entertainment companies take their video content and convert it into, with our proprietary technology, convert it into comics and other digital formats. So happy to be here. Lovely topic, BITOSA. And also, I am a mother of two wonderful daughters, very proud to be in this role. And I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, Priyana and Priyanka. And they must be watching.
Wonderful.
Great. Looking forward to talking about them also in this conversation. So let's start by going down the memory lane a bit. This is a common question, and you guys can take turns in answering this. What differences do you observe between mothers when you were growing up and mothers now? Shall we start with you, Olyvia, ma'am?
Okay. That's a very interesting question. And, when I was thinking about it, it's unfair in many ways to compare motherhood back then and motherhood now. So mothers back then, the way I see it, they had to prepare their kids for a whole different world. And mothers today have to prepare their kids for a whole different world. Back then, life was simpler. Mothers had to, worry about how we did in school and maybe health and so simple things like that. And right now there are a whole range of things that we have to cater to when we talk about getting our kids into the world. We have to pay attention to their emotional health. We have to see their social circles. So we have to see, watch out for their screen time. Then there's, of course, college applications and sports and also, we need to, they crave attention, so we need to be there for them more often than not. So comparing, I feel, is apples and oranges. It's a whole complex world that brings with it complex and more responsibilities as a mother now.
That's great. Ayush, sir, what do you think about this? What differences do you observe?
A very difficult question to answer, honestly, Vivek, right?
Yeah.
It's like, like what Olyvia said, right? It's like comparing oranges and apples. Right? And, if you ask me, thinking about my mom and now about my wife, right? Or my daughter, right? She's 23 right now. But having said this, right, I feel that at that point of time, the mom was not, the kid was not the focus point for the mom, right? Which I feel now in the current generation, the kids have become the focal point for all the activities, right? And that is because the kind of pressures that they have, the kind of the way the technology has taken up. I heard Olyvia talking about the screen time and various factors of schools and colleges, the pressures that they have, the competition that they have. because of which the being the focus being there on the kids, that has also resulted in a way where the kids are more looked after. They are more privy to the attention of the parents as compared to the last time. When we were growing up, we were more of okay, let them go out, let them play, let them mix around, less of worries. It was an easy world, less complexities. Now it's more of a virtual world that they are living in. So to drag them out of this virtual world and make them realize what the real world is like, it's a task for the moms nowadays.
Thanks for that. I'm sensing some kind of a theme over here. More attention being given to kids than what we might have received growing up. Plus, technology is playing a big role. Ranjita,
We are not complaining.
we are not complaining, certainly. Ranjita, ma'am, what do you think about this?
So I agree. I think it's definitely, moms play an amazing role in the upbringing of kids, no matter which generation we talk about. But when I look at some of the differences, I think information is power in this age. And with more information at our fingertips, I think we worry about small details like nutritional value and a lot of different aspects of kids' development, which I don't think our moms of our times as we were growing up worried that much. So as a result, moms of our time, like moms today, find their hands full with so much to worry about for the kids. And the other big difference I notice is that moms of our times could let the kids outside for hours on end, enjoying time on their bikes, meeting new friends, and coming home at dinner time, and that was totally okay. But today we are kind of scared to leave the kids out because of the bad guys out there. And this also creates more work for us. So we create more work for us because now we have to entertain the kids and we have to find ways to keep them engaged. I think when we were growing up, most of the mothers I saw, they were either housewives or were doing work where they had more work-life balance. And they had a lot of support from in-laws or parents who could lend a helping hand, right? Which we don't see today as much. Not too many joint families. So moms of this time are, they have to do multitasking at the ultimate level.
That's great. Lovely answer. Sandy, what do you have to say about this? I think we are certainly seeing a theme.
Yeah, definitely. And I echo that theme from my fellow panelists. Uh, I think the role of mother was always critical, is critical, and will always be critical. But the way it has evolved over the years is that the world around the mothers, it has grown more complex over the years. So if I look back at my experience, my mother was a working mom as well. She used to be a primary school teacher. But again, it came with its own kind of challenges and less complex as such compared to today's world. And at least in today's world, at least the perceived complexity is a far lot higher. And there's a lot more on the plates of mothers to look at than it used to be previously. And the reason, as Ranjita ma'am covered, that the answer lies in how we have evolved as a society. And most of us who are working, you would observe a pattern. We have migrated from our original place of living to somewhere else where we do not have any support. So from that perspective, in today's day, the mothers are juggling a lot more on their plate than previously. So quite agree with him that the world has grown a lot more complex than when we were growing up.
Definitely, I kind of agree with that. My mom has also been a working woman while I was growing up. She was also a school teacher. And I guess I'm also agreeing with most of the points about us growing up in joint families most of the time. And there was always koi na koi rehta tha jo hamara khayal rakh leta tha. But now when our kids are all by ourselves, all with us, and we have to pay attention to them, so the moms definitely have a lot more on their plate. And we've also talked a lot about technology. Obviously, technology and information is omnipresent. That kind of brings me to my next question also. So Ranjita ma'am, this question is for you. Ma'am, you are on the top 50 under 50 women in technology. You've spent a few decades in the tech world across India and the US. We've also talked a little bit about what technology is doing with respect to a mom and child relationship as well as in parenting. What role do you think technology is playing in the lives of mothers these days? And do you think it is a boon or a bane for motherhood?
So you just made me feel super old with few decades. But I think technology plays such an amazing role in the lives of mothers today. You know, just imagine, you know, what life would have been without technology, how it helps with the childbirth, reducing the infant mortality rates, and you know, keeping mothers connected with their kids when they are traveling. You know, I often find myself on video calls from the hotel room when I'm traveling, you know, really helping out my kids with their homeworks, or you know, even preparing for the quizzes and tests the following day, or just checking on them how their day was at school, because as Olyvia pointed out, we care about their emotional development as well. Um, and you know, technology can play such an important place in the lives of kids if we focus on the positive screen related experiences, such as FaceTiming with relatives out of the town and reading stories together on iPad or Kindle, or you know, even watching movie as a family. You know, those are some of the positive things. Or as the kids grow up, you know, some of the high-tech games can really help them with creativity, problem solving. Obviously, for younger kids, you actually give them the non-digital versions of puzzles and blocks and finger paints so that they develop their motor skills. But when kids grow up, then the high-tech games can add a lot of value. And you know, even if you look at like how much of information is at our fingertips, where kids can go online, and when they are struggling with difficult concepts, they can find those information online. You know, I'll be very honest, I myself go online a lot of times to check out concepts, because I grew up in India. My schooling was in India until undergrad, and then I did my higher studies here in US. And I can tell you, my kids sometimes don't look at the concepts the way we looked at when we were growing up in India, and they find those concepts very alien. So I have to tailor it to what they understand. And the online resources are very handy at those times. Even, you know, when I have, I can't imagine my life without some of these smartphone apps when I'm driving back from work and I have to be there at a particular time, you know, a particular time window when I have to pick up the kids from the daycare. And, you know, I look for apps that can show me the least congested route. And I don't know what I would do without those. Mm-hmm. But information also has, I think technology is great, but it also has some disadvantages. I think excess of anything is bad. So I definitely, you know, get bothered when I see kids glued to the screens and spending too much time online, not having enough time for the nature or to enjoy time with the family. So it's important that we parents really act as role model and you know, enforce some rules like no screen time during dinner time and no screen time at least an hour before the bedtime. Those are simple rules to follow. And I think technology, you know, while it's awesome, kids spend so much time online. I think we now have to worry about bullying, not just in the physical world, but cyberbullying, right? And with so much of digital footprint that kids are creating at such an early age, we have to teach them the importance of privacy and consent. These things were alien when we were growing up, right? But now it's so important to teach them from a very early age. So that's my feedback.
That's wonderful, Ranjita ma'am. A lot of positives actually, and no wonder you are top 50 under 50 women in technology. But I also saw you touched upon a few, pardon me, you touched upon a few very interesting points about like leading by example for your kids. Like when you are talking about limiting screen times, you would have to limit your own screen times also, so that yeah, your kids can't come back to you and say that you don't observe these rules.
Yes.
Why should we observe this, right? And are there any other such rules that you set and around educating your kids with respect to privacy and all of these things? How do you essentially do that? Because these are still like alien concepts over here for parents. So can you
I think
share
I
some
use,
insights?
I use their example, right? Like they are, think about like I have two daughters, 11 and 9 years of age, and they get very antsy if I am sharing some of their baby pictures, or like. They feel like I'm really invading their privacy, right? Or some of their jokes,
Yeah,
or which could be really amusing for me, but it's not amusing for them when I share it in my social network. So I think it's essentially teaching them by example, because what you have to get it in the format which they understand. And the examples play an amazing role, because you have so many examples doing throughout the day. We just talked about how involved mothers of this age are with their kids. I think our world revolves around them. So I typically pick examples to explain things to them. Even like when I have to teach them to stand up to somebody who is bullying them, or bothering them at school, I typically use their examples, or use some of the examples where they observed how I operated in those. So I think some of our experiences as we were growing up comes handy, but you have to tailor them to today's age, how it would have worked. So there's a little bit of extrapolation that you use.
interesting. So the learning never stops.
Yes, I
Yeah,
think we live our, through kids, I think we are living our life one more time.
wonderful, wonderful. While we are talking about motherhood, a father's role has evolved over the years too. Sandy, could you share your thoughts on the supporting role that a father plays in the life of a mother, both on the personal as well, and actually particularly on the professional front?
Yeah, sure. I think the context is my mom was a working mother and my wife is a working mother as well. So I think I understand that quite a fair bit, how it has evolved over the years, having seen my mom and now seeing my wife kind of parenting our 5-year-old. So what I perceive is that that role of the father has evolved in many different ways. But first we have to examine that how has the mother's role evolved. So primarily in three levels. One is at the societal level, wherein the mother is more of an equal breadwinner. There are more nuclear families now than joint families that it used to be, right? And if you, from the societal level, if you come down to the work level, there's more equality, right? There's more responsibilities, the nature and the intensity of the work has evolved. So it's not like 10 years back. The intensity of work has more than quadrupled or multiplied a lot, right? And then the last level is at the household level. And as I mentioned earlier, that it's at the culmination of how society and the work has evolved. And most of us have migrated for work from one place to another where we do not have any support system. So combining all these tiers of change in everybody's work and society and life, the both the parents have become equal participants into parenting. And I have seen myself, if I compare my dad at that point of time, and I was discussing it the other day with a friend of mine, that perhaps my dad came to my school just once or twice, and we just managed it by on our own. And now we have all these parent teacher meetings and all that. And then at home as well, I find myself supporting my wife a lot because there's no support system. So from that perspective, I think the role of father has also evolved in creating a more of a support system, while the mother supports the rest of the family and the child.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing those insights. I think I can relate to that at so many levels, because I share the same childhood experiences, having a mom that was working and now a wife that works. So moving on to Olivia, ma'am. Ma'am, you are an entrepreneur, and when we think about entrepreneurship, we have this picture of an extremely busy person who rarely has time for family. But ma'am, you have a very interesting take on this. Please, could you talk about what you've learned from your experience as an entrepreneur and mom? Also share some tips on how someone going or rather thinking of taking a similar path of entrepreneurship balance between family and business.
Sure. Well, thank you for that question again. See, when I think about raising kids, and all of the panelists have been making some great points, uh, just to sum it up, what are the conditions in which children foster and grow well? So, some of the conditions that I can think about, they need a good environment. They need a good environment at home and also outside in school and the schools you choose. They need attention, and I cannot harp on that enough. Like, kids seek attention and they need that attention from parents, and that takes time. And then there are other things they need to have. They need to eat healthy and be healthy, and so these are some of the conditions in which kids foster and grow well. And then at the personal level, we have ambition. We want to be able to positively contribute to society. We want financial independence. So how do you balance the two, where you have this huge responsibility of being a mother, and then you have your personal goals and ambitions and things that you want to do as a productive member of the world? I have worked in large companies, mid-sized companies, and most recently, I've been an entrepreneur. What I realized is that entrepreneurship gave me more control of my time, the time that my kids needed. I was able to choose, and this is not every day, but on many occasions, I was able to choose my time of working and navigate through the crazy days and hours that I had, and be able to be there for my kids. I feel that in my experience and perspective, particularly, I had entrepreneurship gave me more control over that. I've heard other mothers, other entrepreneurs also share a similar view. In fact, I once listened to a talk by Sandy Kurtzik, who's one of the first female entrepreneurs here in the Valley. And she went on to build a $1 billion empire. And she herself talks about her role, and she did this in the 80s and 90s here in the Valley. And she herself talks about this aspect of entrepreneurship, which I relate to very well, that it gives you, as a mother, as a parent, it gives you more control of your time, and to be able to navigate through your responsibilities as running a company and being a parent. I talk about it, or I think about it as a portfolio theory, like when we invest in stocks or whatever, we like to de-risk, we hedge our risks, right? So in a family, I feel if there is one, and it doesn't have to be the mother, but if there is one parent who's in a stable, large company role or job, the other parent can be part of a startup or do their own business. It really helps in being able to give that attention and time because of the flexibility that you get. There are other benefits as well, of course.
Nice. So what I'm hearing from you, Olivia ma'am, is definitely you gain more time for yourself and for your family when you're pursuing entrepreneurship. And I guess there is this whole subject of time management that this webinar is not meant for, but you can certainly think of balancing this in a much better way.
Yeah, you can choose your time better. I wouldn't say more time, but you can choose, you can navigate it better.
Can you share some tips on how do you kind of do that management of where you're allocating your time through your day, and how do you make those choices?
So simple things. So when I talk about attention to kids, so there was a phase when I realized when my child went into middle school, she needed me to, for some reason, and the, you know, kids have needs and they go away over a period of time, but she needed me to pick her up after school. She didn't want to do that after school activity and be in a, so now school gets over at 2:45. Now, if I was working in a regular job, getting out at 2:45 every day and going to pick up my child, because she was going through the phase, she just didn't want to be in the after school, would have been difficult. But again, so those are the things I was able to, anyway, I have a team in India, so I was able to plan my work more around the later parts of the day, as opposed to, you know, as opposed to the earlier parts of the day when I could be with my kids, or give them time more. So I'm comparing with my role that I did in EMC, where I traveled a lot, and I used to be out every week from Monday to Thursday, and practically, you know, everything was on Santosh, and kids were much smaller at that time. There are other benefits, you know, for entrepreneurship. I see that because, like Ranjeeta said, we serve as role models. I think they become better at taking risks. I see my 16-year-old, there are inherent things that she understands about the benefits of creating and this can be, of course, developed in other ways. I'm not saying that being an entrepreneur is the only way to inculcate those values in kids, but risk taking, or they see that in the parent, and, you know, when the joys of succeeding, or not to take failure too hard, but to try harder, and you know, they how to value companies, that becomes part of their vocabulary. And
Nice.
The fact that subscription revenue is better than transaction revenue, they start learning these things even at a younger age, which I think is usually beneficial.
That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Ayush, in our conversations before this webinar, you mentioned that motherhood is an experience, whereas parenting is execution. Can you please talk more along that line and share your thoughts on the role of a father in parenting?
Thanks, Vivek. Now, this is, you know, after hearing Ranjeeta and Olyvia, you know, it's so simple for them to talk about this subject, right? It comes from within, correct? And I'm sure Sandy also has those goosebumps, you know, when talking about motherhood, right? You know, how do we handle this? And, you know, when you came up with this topic, and my first reaction was, okay, look, Vivek, how do you expect a father to talk about motherhood? Because motherhood, as I see it, is an experience. You know, it starts from the day a woman or a lady starts, she conceives, right? It is at that point of time, the transformation of being a mother, right? It starts sinking in. You know, there are emotional changes in her, you know, as a mother, right? Because she's carrying a life within her, right? There are biological changes in her, right? And so, you know, I personally feel for a father to even talk about motherhood is something, you know, which he cannot express enough, right? And that is where I came from, you know, when I said that, you know, it's an experience with only a mother can talk about, right? Because of what they experience those 9 months or whatever that period is, there's a strong bonding that they develop with the life within themselves, right? That bond brings in a lot of sincerity, brings in a lot of sacrifice. You know, even before the boy or a girl comes into this world, they are mentally ready, because for those 9 months they have sacrificed one thing or the other. And as Father Sandy, do we recollect any sacrifices so far, except for, you know, we have not been able to go for the movies because my wife was not feeling well, right?
Definitely.
So now, when a mother goes through these experiences of sacrifices, right, there is an unconditional love that is there in a mother's mind, heart, soul, body, whatever you call it, towards the kid, right? And when I say that it is an unconditional love, love by definition is blind, right? Love
Nice.
cannot think about giving pain to somebody you love. And when we talk of parenting,
Yeah.
parenting is about deciding what's right and wrong in that love. So you extract that this decision or this action of mine towards a child is right. So you do that and you say that, okay, if I do too much of this is wrong. It's not good for the kid. So you're extracting out of your love, whether it is a lot of screen time, like Ranjeeta said that, simple rules like, there should not be any screen time on the dining table or no screen time 1 hour before the bedtime, right? Now, these are parenting tips. But as a mother, if we take out this parenting part, she would want, and if the child insists, she would say, okay, yes, go on. Why not more screen time?
And what role does fathers play in this, Ayush sir?
That's another tricky question, that you have asked. Okay. So a parenting, if you ask me, can a good parenting can only come in if there is an excellent relationship, understanding, and bonding between a husband and a wife, right? It's a balance, it's kind of we say कहते हैं ना कि गाड़ी के दो चक्के. So saying that in a parenting act, I think fathers have an equal role to play in terms of maybe
Ayush sir, when you said gadi, I think you meant motorcycle, right?
हाँ मोटरसाइकिल ही ठीक है.
चार पहिए में तो दो पहिए कम पड़ जाएंगे.
नहीं मोटरसाइकिल ही बढ़िया है. हम लोगों के टाइम में तो बीआईटी में साइकिलें हुआ करती थी. करेक्ट. If you come back to the topic, so I think the father is equally important in terms of upbringing the child, in terms of instilling the values, but it's more of a support to the mother so that she can fulfill her responsibilities and her duties in a much better way, rather than just cribbing that she is not paying attention to him. Like I very often I joke to my wife, when my kids went to the hostel, right? And I said, okay, look, after 20 years now you will pay attention to me. Right? So it's like this, a husband has to be very, very supportive. So that's why I say that motherhood is an experience and parenting is an execution.
That's so brilliantly put, Ayush sir. And referring back to what Olyvia ma'am said about the portfolio theory, I think the father's roles comes in kind of doing that balancing act on an everyday basis, basically.
Absolutely.
That's nice. Now this is time for some audience question, and we've been getting a lot of audience questions. One is from Arup sir, and this is a brilliant question. As a mom, how do you coach your children in terms of choosing a career?
Do they still ask? So this question is I think it should be to Ranjeeta and Olyvia.
Okay,
anyone can pick it up. I believe.
I think Olyvia, it makes sense for Olyvia to pick this one because she has teenage daughters.
I have a 16-year-old, so yeah. So this is more recent when Ranjeeta's kids are younger, but you will face this. The way I have, and everybody does it differently, but the relation I shared with my kids, it's been, and I have 2 kids, and kids can be different. There can be one who is very ambitious and just knows right from the age of 8 what they want to be, and there's one who can take the time to to decide that, and that's okay. I think if you treat kids as individuals, and again, going back to your first question, the paradigm earlier was like, I'm the parent, I'm going to tell you what to do. It was more of like that in our times. But right now, the relation I share with my kids is, I treat them as human beings, as individuals, as almost equals. And in fact, so to answer your question directly, you support them with what they want to do. And if there is one who knows and is very driven, and then you are there to listen and to give attention to what they need. And if there is somebody who's still wanting to figure that out, then you don't rush that person. You make the child experiment and have different kind of experiences. And it's okay if that decision to what they want to do eventually comes like in high school or even after high school, you know. So those are things you evolve with the child. You understand each child's needs differently, and you address it accordingly.
Nice. I think this is there's another question. Ranjeeta ma'am, did you want to add something over there?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say that, yes, I agree with Olivia that I think our roles have changed as mothers. We are more like friends to our kids, and that leads to more transparent communication, and they can bounce off ideas of you. I think since very early age, I started observing my kids. I think, as I said earlier, like, we act as role models for them. They definitely want to be like us. So that's when their career choices start showing up. They start thinking about, whether they want to follow you. They have all these different options. I think the best approach to helping them with their career choices is to weave that in very early on in their life, to help them see the pros and cons of each career option. And have that discussion. And I think the more information they have, it really helps them evolve over time till they get to that age, as Olivia was pointing out, like, when they have to make those choices and decide that, okay, now I'm going to pursue this. I think they're already armed with so much of information, and they can have that open communication that it makes their life easy at that time when they have to make a decision.
Wonderful. And there's another very interesting question that has come from the audience. I don't know who has posted this, but the question is, we hear about the possibility of having robots as a personal assistant soon. How would you leverage such technologies to make your role as a mom even more powerful?
Roomba.
Yeah, robo
Roomba
assistant.
is running
Yeah.
around the house all the time. Yeah, and well, you make the kids program it. You so that I'll be working, and suddenly at 2 o'clock something starts buzzing in the house. What's happening? And you see, so somebody's programmed it to automatically start vacuuming the house at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is cool. So yeah, that's one direct application to robotics in the household recently. But there are so many others. I'll let the other panelists speak.
Ayush sir, you wanted to try?
Yeah. Whoever has posted this question has, if he's a father, he has dug his grave, right? So, the first thing that the mother is going to do is have a robot and do all the things that he wants to be done through that robot, so that she can spend more time with the kids, right? Because what the kids want, robot is so mechanized, right? It cannot give. But to husband, yes, all those services can be offered.
Ranjeeta ma'am, you wanted to add something?
Sure. So I think, I always have this dilemma of how much I want to make them, a complete slave to the technology, versus balancing it out to also have their development going. So I always, try to balance it out, because yes, we have Roomba and, those things to help us. But I also want to inculcate that spirit in them of, how to do things on your own. If these things, these are all technology. Once in a while they can fail. and you shouldn't feel that void if these things don't stop working suddenly, right? Like, so much dependence on Alexa, switch off the light and turn on the music. To me, that's like completely getting spoiled. So
unless
even
it's the Wi-Fi router.
Exactly. Wi-Fi router, I can't live without. But, there are things which I think you have to inculcate in them from very beginning. The place of technology. It's not everything. Your life should not be so dependent on it that you can't even live if technology is not there. So for me, that is the balance I strike. Like, I tell them, like, you cannot use Alexa for all these certain things. You have to do it on your own. Don't be so lazy, right? But yes, we use Roomba, but at the same time I teach them, like, if you have to do vacuuming on your own, you should be ready to do it. And they actually see us doing it. I think we as parents play a very important role in showing them. So we are walking the walk, not just talking. So I think it's important as we are cooking or doing things, showing them that you have to do a lot of things on your own and not just be a total slave to technology.
Wonderful. Sandy, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in that some of it is already happening, as Ranjeeta ma'am said, that for example, Roomba, the robot, it's a vacuum cleaner robot that you can keep. I mean, and that some of it is already happening. So as a response to someone who asked the question, and also to bring in a bit, it might be a bit controversial into this context, because I was speaking to a couple of friends of mine in India, and in the context of lockdown, the biggest problem is now they do not have any domestic help. So going back to the point Ranjeeta ma'am was making about growing the kids with being more self-sufficient is very important, because when you lose that, when you do not, you should have that fallback option and the ability to kind of stand back up on when you do not have the support of that technology. So that is quite important, that as parents, we need to inculcate that self-sufficiency in kids.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I guess that's a good way to close our discussion today as well. Ultimately, it all comes back to showing kids through example as to how they can choose their career path, how they have to uh, balance technology in their life, as well as be self-sufficient. With that, we've come to the end of this wonderful webinar. I would like to thank once again each one of our panel members. I see that Ayush sir seems to have logged out, but thank you so much, Ranjeeta ma'am, Olyvia ma'am, and Sandy and Ayush sir. Oh, you're there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. And thanks to our viewers for joining in and asking such interesting questions. Thanks to Varun sir, Abhishek sir, and Ramesh sir for the guidance. And of course, this wouldn't have been possible without the organizing team working behind the scenes. So thanks Neha, CS, and Seema. And for your information to everyone, a recording link of this webinar will be shared with you via email. Look out for an email from CS. Also, please feel free to connect with our panel members and myself on LinkedIn to continue this conversation beyond this webinar. Once again, thanks a lot. Good day to West Coasters, and good night to India folks, and good evening to Sandy.
Thank you, Vivek.
Bye.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Vivek. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Good night.